Okay, so we're gonna do a deck review. A Eurocore Mechanized deck. Eurocore is Germany, or West Germany and France, the Republic of France. And well, I made this deck after seeing someone's game where they kept using infantry, but they wouldn't support them with anything because their vehicles are too expensive. So what I have is a fob, as normal. These cheaper trucks. They don't carry too much, but you get a lot of them. And then for command, I just have a M577G, German one. Infantry. See, this is where this deck shines, because you got a lot of good infantry. Now, I take some different infantry than what a lot of people would take. But I have reservists, because I just find having reserve, especially a deck like this where you have two different reserve, you can cover a lot of the map and hold the enemy while you get some better infantry in there. And these reservists also have a pretty good anti-tank rocket. I mean, not that good of range of only 455, but 40% accuracy and 14 AP. That can take out some cheaper tanks, almost all transports. And it's got pretty good suppression of 292. And they have them in the AMX-13 VTT, which is just a cheap transport with an M2 Browning. I also have the Hemmertschützen, which is the German reserve. Now they have a pretty good rifle for a reserve, so this is a lot like the two reserves in the Eastern Bloc deck. You have the ones with the semi-automatic, slow-firing but more accurate rifle, and then you have these guys with the assault rifle, which is an HKG-3. So these guys can actually, for 5 points, these guys can actually fight pretty good. And they have, I mean, look at that accuracy on their anti-tank rifle, and look at that suppression, 400 suppression, because it's a 100mm heat rocket. It's a big heat rocket. I mean, compare the LRAC, which is a 73mm. Then I have some Dakun's group. Now these guys are your recoilless rifles, 70% accuracy on the Carl Gustav M2. They have MP2A1s, and I have them in the best transport that you can get in this deck, which is the Martyr 1A3. And the Martyr 1A3 has anti-tank rockets and 20mm. So this combination of, you have a lot of firepower right here. In these, I have two of them, and I'm pretty sure I have them in hardened, because you get more. Then for heavier anti-tank, I have the Milan F3 and Milan F2s. You can only take one Milan F3, but you can take Milan F2 also, which isn't actually that much worse. It's got 2 less AP and 10. It's still 40% accuracy, which is good. Now for your main infantry, which is going to be doing all the fighting, I went with the Chasseurs 85. Why? Because the FAMAS is a pretty good assault rifle. I mean, it's pretty ugly, but I mean, it's got 15% stabilizer, 30% accuracy. I mean, you get 10 of them, which is pretty good. So I took 2 85s. Then for some lighter infantry, basically these are heavier than your reserve, but lighter than your main infantry. I went with the regular Chasseurs because they have this 9mm submachine gun, which means they're really good at close range, like in the town. Like these are for your town. These are more for woods battles. And reserve, it doesn't really matter where you put them. And same with these other ones where you... So, support. I went with this AMX-13 OL Noir. It's a... I mean, for 35 points, it fires really fast. I mean, it fires faster than the Leopard... Gepard... The Flak Panzer Gepard 8.2. I mean, wait, no, here it is. And you get I have 2 cards that I think in hardened, so you have 8s at 16. So you can definitely get some flak in there. And they have pretty good range versus airplanes. I mean for 30, and they are radar, so seed will take them out, but they're cheap. So if some guy brings in a real expensive seed plane, it doesn't really matter. And I also have the AMX-30 Roland. So what you do with these, you put some of these and a Roland next to them, so they'll come in real close to get this, and then you hit them with the Roland. I mean, it doesn't have that good a range versus planes, but it's still. Oh, and these also destroy helicopters. Now for artillery, I might have did something a little bit weird there. I didn't go with the M109. I went with the 200, the big gun. Why? Well, because you don't really need artillery with this deck, because how much fire you have in the infantry and their transports. So what you need is the real hard-hitting one to take out, like a stationary tank or something. But just in case, I have these tiny AMX-30 AU-105s, which are, bring 1 or 2 up just to get some artillery fire, just to knock down some infantry. Tank. Now, I went with a lot different than what most people would go with. A lot of people would go with, Leopard 2s because they have 16 frontal armor. But I feel that this deck isn't about, tanks. You're all about supporting your infantry, which are your main force. So, see, when I saw the one guy move up, he would move his infantry across the field with no cover. And he's supposed to be good 1v1 competitive players, and no one ever uses the AMX-13 Harpoon. It's actually a pretty good vehicle for covering your infantry, because it's got this 75mm cannon with 13 rounds per minute. And if you don't know about the AMX-13, this is called an oscillating turret. Basically, every time the gun fires, the whole turret moves, and it has an auto-loading mechanism that keeps loading the rounds in. So that's 13 rounds per minute. Plus you get these anti-tank missiles. And they're fast and they're cheap. Now for a little bit heavier of a tank, or a lot heavier of a tank, because this is a light tank and this is a main battle tank, we went with the KP-70 Kyler, which has a very good gun, 12 front armor, and a 20mm autocannon. So this can engage tanks, it can engage transports, the autocannon's good versus infantry. And then for your main tank, that's going to be doing most of everything. I went with the AMX-30 B2 Brennus. I went with it over because it has a 20mm autocannon and the machine gun compared to the Leopard 185, which just has a machine gun. I went with 2 of them, and they also have pretty good frontal armor of 11. Recon. So I went with the Alouette over the BO-105. Even though the BO-105 is faster, this one has more fuel, so it can remain in the air longer. Now for Scout Infantry, I went with the Commandos Para, because they have a good anti-tank rocket, and their gun's pretty good, and they have a good light machine gun. Plus the the aircraft they come in has a 20mm autocannon. Then I went with the AMX-1390. If you play World of Tanks, you will know this tank. Like I said, AMX-13 has an auto-loading, so with the 90mm it has the same fire rate as the 75mm. And this is, is a cheap transport. It's a cheap scout that has a good gun. You move this scout and it's fast. So you can move it up with your mechanized infantry and get some fire out there. Now for your best scout, this is your best scout, the Vab Rasset. It has exceptional view range. It's very fast on-road and fast off-road. It's amphibious. I mean, it doesn't have a good gun, but it's got a radar dish. So it's really good. Vehicles. You have a lot of vehicles here. ERC-90 Sagays. These are very fast vehicles, 95 off-road. They have good guns, good machine gun, and you get a lot of them. So you can move these up with your infantry, use them to cover your infantry, move them up with your tanks to give them some supporting fire. Same with the Conan Jagenpanzer, which is one of the last tank destroyers ever. It's got a 90mm gun. I went with it over the Mortar VT because it's 5 points cheaper. It doesn't have that much worse armor, and the gun has the same. Is not actually that much worse. Plus, you get a machine gun with this one. So, you know, like I said with these, you can move it up with your tanks, use it as an AVRE vehicle. I mean, suppression's not that great, HE power's not that great, but you can use it to shoot infantry. Nope, that's the phone. So, for some heavier anti-tank, you get the Jaguar 2, which is got a ITOW, very good range on that, very good accuracy, and I believe I have 2 in veteran, so the accuracy is even higher. Then I went with, now this is a very hard choice, because you can, I went with 3 of AMX 10P Milans. Why over the AMX 10 Hot? Why? Because even though you have more missiles with this has missiles and an autocannon. So I find this more useful than the AMX 10 Hot. No helicopters, because I don't find any of these very useful. I only find a helicopter useful if they're cheap and they have like the rocket spam. Air. I went with the Alpha Jet A. It's got 2 napalm bombs. It's cheap, of only 50 points. And with these, you get 8 of them if you choose 2. Navy. I use it to bring in some Rimas, 85, and a VAB. VAB is a very good vehicle because it's a 20mm autocannon. Bringing in more AMX 13 Harpoons. The anti-tank missile with cannon is it's just great. And then I bring in some Weasel Mark 1 MK20s, which have a 20mm autocannon. No ships. I just don't find ships useful. So that's my deck for Mechanized Eurocore. I called it Franco-Germanic, which is a reference to an ancient empire. So, yep, that's everything. Bye.